and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to a new edition of Political Smackdown. We've got the regulars with us plus a semi-regular. Mr. Harris, we're glad to have you with us today. Got a note from Miss Betsy yesterday that she had been to convention and in addition to luggage brought back COVID.
That's right.
So we miss Betsy, but glad you're not here with that, Betsy.
Is that one of those things that instead of getting a T-shirt, you got COVID?
Apparently, that's what it sounded like.
I don't know. I imagine Betsy will have some kind of paraphernalia to show us when she gets back.
I can hardly wait. Can you imagine how she's going to be dressed when she gets back?
I'm sure it'll be interesting. Betsy, we hope you do better very quickly. Well, a lot of good things are happening on the east side of Buffalo Creek. Liberty Mountain Drama is set to start in mid-September and run through early October, and Mountaineer Days Heritage Festival will be in mid-October. But recently, the city of Kings Mountain has been a topic of discussion. We discussed Councilman David Allen's departure the other day. Last week, the city released a proposed contract for the city manager that, among other things, would have given him direct compensation based on a single company's donation to the city. Needless to say, this was quickly squashed, but drew quite a few public comments at their last meeting and a long closed session in which no action was apparently taken. Meantime, Moss Lake residents received their lease packets, even though the city says they're reconsidering the fee structure. Andy, you planning to go to Liberty Mountain Drama? What do you think of city manager drama?
No, I probably won't. I'm sure I've heard nothing but good things about it, though, Wes. That'll be good. But this city manager, is he just a full-time idiot or what? I mean, I'm sorry.
What do you really think?
Well, I mean, Mike, I've been in and around government most of my adult life. I have never seen anything this egregiously that's just ignorant. I mean, you're saying that you're going to hold Albemarle, the mining company, and let's just say that's what it is, that basically going to hold them hostage while the city manager extorts money from them to put in his pocket. Is that not what it is? I mean, I know you're trying to be very diplomatic. I get that.
I'm the moderator.
Well, I'm not this week, so I'm gonna, as they say, shuck it on down.
But I did ask the question.
So. Yes, you did. Well, I mean, this is just they should have took him in closed session and they should have fired him, in my opinion. I've just never seen anything that is so appalling as somebody that would write their own contract and it even get to the city council. That shows either one or two things. This guy is just a raving lunatic, or the people on that city council are raving lunatics for even hiring the guy to let him put a contract like this out. It's insane. I just cannot understand. And there's a lot of good people in Kings Mountain. I truly believe that. But they deserve better than this, Wes. Far more. They deserve a lot more than this. And I wish some people would step up, and especially with this opening with David Allen. But I wish there's some good people would stand up and say, I'd like to be a part of trying to fix this.
Well, to council's credit, they did pull the contract from the agenda, so it didn't actually come before them. I'm not sure how it got leaked, but all of us at this table have been through ethics training routinely because of our roles in government. Right. Mr. Harris, your thoughts on Kings Mountain, and I do want to plug Liberty Mountain Drama. That's a fantastic program that is well worth your time to go see. But
and I agree. I've never been to the Liberty Mountain play, but like Andy, I've heard nothing but good reports from folks that have been there. I used to take students to the battlefield every year on October the 7th, and we recognize that the Kings Mountain battle was probably the most significant of the Southern campaign. But I've never been to that drama, but I think I will this year. I've just never taken the opportunity but it's supposed to be really, really good. Bob Inman from WBTV for whatever, 25 or 30 years, he wrote the script, and it's supposed to be really good. You know, I think on this program, we used to look for the school board to keep us in material, and now we look to the Kings Mountain City Council to kind of keep us in material, and that just seems to be the gift that keeps on giving. I've never met the city manager at Kings Mountain to my memory. He's been there about a year and a half. I think he served 8 or 9 different towns before he came to Kings Mountain, and I have heard secondhand, I certainly don't know it to be true, but I've heard that he was either encouraged to resign from a lot of those places or was fired. But anyway, served a lot of places. But like Andy, I understand that the duty of a city manager is to carry out the policies and the ordinances of the council, and every city manager serves at the pleasure of the city council. So if he is off the reservation and doing things that he ought not be doing, it is the city council's responsibility to either get him back on the reservation or to find somebody else as city manager. He serves at the pleasure of the city council, and ultimately that's where the buck stops.
Yeah. Well, Mike, you've worked with city managers. You've been in the role of mayor. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, let's maybe just get a little bit of the facts out there. It was put on Facebook is where I saw it, the original proposed extension of his contract. I believe he was given a 2-year contract when he was hired, and it expires December 31st, 2024, if my understanding is correct. And so in this contract that he was asking them to extend that was going to be on their agenda on August the 28th or 27th, whatever day it was, this past Tuesday, that was going to be a discussion. When that became known by the public, that he put in there, one of the things he put in there was 0.25% Albemarle bonus to him for all of the revenue that comes to Kings Mountain because of Albemarle is basically what it was. Wow. And it could be millions and millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. I mean, anybody that knows, Andy, you know, Albemarle has bought literally probably thousands of acres in and near Kings Mountain.
Unbelievable how much they bought up.
And a lot of that money's coming from the federal government to Albemarle because they're going to be a lithium battery maker and revive the old lithium mines around Kings Mountain. I know they bought over 800 acres in April of this year from one family, some of which is in or at least the ETJ of Kings Mountain, but it's between Kings Mountain and Grover largely.
But current ETJ or former ETJ?
Well, some of it will be former after October 1. So that was the thing that got the most discussion, and the council heard from the public. They heard from Albemarle, I'm told, that Albemarle didn't think that was good. I actually sent a copy of that page out of that proposed contract to a former city manager of mine and asked him, was this even legal? And he responded, he wasn't sure if it was legal or not, but it was certainly unusual. Now, he was a diplomat too, Andy.
He still is. And the best city manager we've ever seen.
So they took it out, but they did go into closed session. They had a couple people speak about that in the lake and other. And one pretty prominent Kings Mountain businessman went through his history, Roger.
Yes, he did.
Of having to be fired in Gastonia, fired, I believe, in somewhere out west. Was it New Mexico?
New Mexico.
And then he went, last place he came in the Midwest, maybe it was Ohio or something before he came here. Then they allowed him to resign. He even sued his New Mexico people after that. He took a year's severance and stuff. But I looked all this up when he was hired, and I thought, man, he has a colorful history.
Yep.
That's not what you thought, Mike.
And well, Andy, I'm nicer than you.
Today you probably are.
But since he's been in Kings Mountain less than 2 years, he's created quite a stir with the lake people. He's created quite a stir with the citizens. They've had relatively large increases in electric rates after being used to lower ones. They've had pretty good increases in water and sewer rates. And he came in and proposed a fairly significant property tax increase to his very first budget and got it passed. And it led to some changes on Kings Mountain City Council last year probably. So I don't know what will happen, Wes, but they did go into closed session, probably discussed this. They came back out, they took no action, which probably indicates that they're not ready to take action to renew, nor to publicly say they're not going to renew. So from our point of view, I guess as those on the outside looking in, we'll just have to see what happens.
Well, it's certainly something to keep an eye on. And again, I think there's a lot of good things happening in Kings Mountain, a lot of good folks over there, and hope they can get this figured out and squared away. But I've never seen anything quite like we saw in that contract in politics in my life.
No.
Never.
One of the things that had in there, they were going to do this for him because in that contract, Roger, in that original, it said he was getting some of this because city manager was considered a hard-to-fill job. Well, I've never known a city that could pay a man closer to $200,000 a year in a town that size than 100 that had a hard time filling the job.
I think that line forms double at the rear.
That's right. No, high school chemistry teachers are hard to fill. City managers aren't.
And nothing would prevent the city council from giving him a bonus at any time they wanted for any reason they wanted. It's the fact that it's tied directly to a specific
company.
private corporation that certainly was
I've
the
never
problem I
even
have
heard
with
of
it.
that anywhere else.
No, I don't. Not legally anyway.
No. Well, finally, last night, Vice President Harris gave an interview, albeit with a friendly network and with her running mate at her side. We're just going to get started on this one and then we'll take a little break. But Mike, how'd she do? Any surprises or clarifications on her position? Was there anything said or done there?
Well, it was a relatively short interview with Waltz there, and he talked a little bit, but I'll start out with my nice thing to say. I really thought her best answer was when Dana Bash tried to draw her into the race question, that she said basically that she had heard enough about that kind of stuff, next question. And to her credit, I think that was a good answer on that particular question. She really beat around the bush. She didn't give anything specific. On day one, she's going to be for the middle class. Well, can y'all name me a presidential candidate that on day one is not for the middle class? But there were no real specifics. She said she was no longer against fracking. They didn't get into too much the border issue, but now she's had a come to Jesus moment about there needs to be something done to the border, but nothing's been done in 3.5 years. I would say basically it was about what I would have expected coming from Dana Bash. She asked some good questions, but she didn't follow up when she didn't answer the questions directly and try to force her to at least one more time, which is what reporters usually do.
Yep, I agree. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back and see what the Democrats say about the glittering generalities from last night.
Tune in to Senior Moments here on C19 TV. I am Jackie Sibley Newton with Terabella Assisted Living. Whether you are a senior planning for your own future or helping someone make decisions, Senior Moments has got information to share. We talk about the wealth of services, activities, and healthy living options available to you here in our area. That's Senior Moments on C19 and also on C19.tv.
Welcome back. Mr. Harris, it seems like 39 days to say nothing at all, and she needed a sitter at her side to not do it. I thought the optics were not very good. Just the staging, the setup of it. She handled herself fairly well. shuck and jive plenty, but she just did not appear very strong to me on the stage. What are your takeaways from the
Well,
discussion?
I thought she sounded presidential. She answered the questions. She didn't talk about Hannibal Lecter or this weird fascination with crowd size. She didn't do any of that. The questions, I thought, focused on her changes in positions. And it's clearly, especially on immigration and fracking, there's been a change in position from 2019 to now. And, sometimes I think either politicians or the rest of us, we change our mind when we get new information and grow older and get different views. And sometimes it's because politicians can read the tea leaves.
The new information is called Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Sometimes you read the tea leaves.
But,
and
Michael-
you see that. Mark Robinson has certainly moderated his position on abortion when he read the tea leaves. So you see that in politicians. I think most people have changed their mind over legalization of marijuana and same-sex marriage over the last several years. It happens.
I've not
But-
seen Robinson moderate anything. Have you, Mike?
Well, he did say he supports the North Carolina bill now,
Yep,
which
which he used to
allows
oppose.
the 3 exceptions and abortions up to 12 weeks.
She did mention last night she was going to have a Republican on her cabinet. That's not that unusual. Biden's FBI director is a Republican. Obama's Secretary of Defense was a Republican. George W.'s Secretary of Transportation was a Democrat. So that's not unusual. But I thought she answered the questions. I thought, I'm not sure she moved the needle a whole lot, but the goal may have been do no harm. And I think she did that.
Yeah, probably that's correct. Andy, I think to follow up on that thread, I think this is one of those, if you were supporting Ms. Harris, you're still supporting her. If you were supporting Trump, you're still supporting him. I don't know that we moved a whole lot, but I was just glad to see her get out there.
Well, when you see people do these sort of things, and Trump is the exception, I mean, he'll blow his own knees out on some of this stuff. But the average person's running, it's just like Roger said, do no harm. You just get out there, you try to maybe stake out some things that just like changes in fracking and that sort of thing that she's, Michael, as we Southern Baptists say, a Damascus Road experience. So, I mean, and it happens just like some people used to have about when they would go to Iowa, all of a sudden they were gasohol. Can you imagine such a thing? Just the biggest corn producer in the whole country. So, anyway, nothing. But she did nothing to hurt herself. She didn't help herself. I thought a lot. I didn't have any problem about Waltz being there. I mean, I think people want to see more about him. I mean, I don't think it's because I mean, basically they're running. It's a team. So you might as well see the whole team while you're out there. So,
And CNN invited him. Does he not show up?
yeah, I mean, the way I looked at it, no harm, no foul, and we're moving on to election day.
Or we're going to have a debate in the meantime.
Yes, I
Yes.
think you're going to see
What,
several.
12
and I
more
think,
days, I think.
Yep.
Feel pretty good about that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Well, I'll be anxious at some point. I think she's got to put policies out there that are much more specific than I'm not going to ban fracking. There's got to be more than that. We saw the price freeze on groceries, which is a scary thing, and she took a lot of flack for that. So
I always hate the questions about what are you going to do on day one. I tell you what the president's going to do on day one. He's going to get inaugurated and go to a bunch of balls. That's what a president does on day one.
And hopefully find out where the bedroom is.
agree.
And
First
here
100
lately-
days is
here-
relevant.
Yeah, the first 100 days. What are you
Here
gonna do the
lately,
first 100?
sign a handful of new executive orders.
That's right, and that's it.
well, we'll see what happens, and Labor Day's coming up, and then we're going to be in election season, even though we might be already tired of it, but it's fixing to ramp up for sure. But it seems the more we learn about the results of the Biden-Harris failure to secure the U.S. borders, the more we learn. This week, the state auditor of Mississippi released a stunning report of the cost to the state of Mississippi taxpayers of the illegal immigrants. Meanwhile, California is considering, and the General Assembly yesterday passed, a plan expanding a payment of up to $150 to be used for down payment for closing costs.
$150,000.
$150,000 for first-time home buyers, including illegal immigrants. Sounds a whole lot like a plan that we heard from Vice President Harris the other week Mr. Harris, is this good policy? Or are we finally going to sometime stop this nonsense?
Last October, the Senate GOP made it very clear they were not going to give any more money for aid to Ukraine without a bill to secure the border. Two teams went to work, led by James Langford, and they came out with a border bill, a strong border bill. It would raise the standard for asylum. You couldn't just say, I'm afraid in my country. It would deport anybody with a criminal history immediately. There were going to be more Border Patrol agents, 1,500 new ICE agents, $650 million for border wall construction, more technology to stop drugs, and no amnesty period. That was the bill that came out. It was going to have broad support, and President Trump killed it. There is a crisis at the border, but because President Trump killed a bill that was going to provide a lot of solutions for that, President Trump now owns it.
And then within weeks, President Biden, by executive order, did the same thing, which ensures up to 2,500 illegal immigrants per day can come in. That was the problem with the bill. Had very little to do with Trump. I'll give you a quick rebuttal before I go to Mike.
Gotcha. All right. And you know, all bills have to have a compromise. And that's the essence of politics, is to reach a compromise. This was a tough bill. The last time we've had a comprehensive border bill was when Ronald Reagan was president. This was going to be the first strong border bill, maybe not perfect from Democrats' view or from Republicans' view, but it was a strong border bill, and President Trump made it very clear he wanted to keep the issue and not solve the problem.
Yeah, 2,500 a day doesn't sound like much control to me, Mike.
No, it had a lot of things in it that a lot of Republicans could not live with. Trump certainly had influence, but Trump didn't have a vote. So I don't deny that he had influence, Roger, but the House itself, the Speaker killed it. It wasn't really Trump that killed it. The Speaker wouldn't bring it to the floor, and they couldn't get 218 or whatever the number is. It would be 218 if they had all 435 to get a discharge petition. And then it may not have passed because of the filibuster rule in the Senate too. Right. It would have been subject, as I understand it, to the filibuster rule. I want to go back to the Mississippi thing. I actually looked that up. I don't think you had a link to it.
I did.
But of course, did you? Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, you did. Maybe that's where I found this. According to the auditor of Mississippi, which is what, about half the population of North Carolina. $25 million is now being spent annually to educate illegal immigrants in the K-12 public schools, $77 million to provide health care to illegal immigrants and their children annually, and $1.7 million to incarcerate illegal immigrants who commit crimes. So you add those together, and that's over $100 million a year that it's costing the state of Mississippi because of the problem. He says there are 22,000 illegal immigrants currently living in Mississippi. And it just goes to show you that now every state's a border state. And we've had at least 10, some reports say maybe 15 million, there's no real good number I think, but probably between 10 and 15 illegal immigrants since January 20th, 2021 because of the mess at the border. So and the first-time homebuyer thing in California, God forbid, the average price of a house in California now is $784,989 according to Zillow, which, Andy, we know that's not accurate, but it might be in the ballpark. One thing, Andy, and I can tell you, Zillow misses a lot.
Don't even get me started on that.
Well, the good news about California, that while they expanded the plan, they didn't give it any more money, and they've already exhausted it in the first few days. So while they did expand it, it really isn't going to put more money in, at least anytime soon. Andy, you said before we've got to deal with the root cause.
Yep.
And I agree with you completely, but at some point, do we not have to control our border to be a sovereign nation?
Well, and I agree, but let's get right down to it, Wes. And I went to the most liberal, far left thing I could find, the Wall Street Journal. and the truth of it is the last 6 months, border crossings have dropped a lot. It's gone from 250,000 in December to 57,000 in July, which is still outrageously high. But there is some changes been made, and some of it is Biden administration has basically told Mexico, you're going to have to get into this thing. We cannot keep taking these people. So they are forcing them to now have a gauntlet that these folks are having to run in Mexico before they even get to the U.S. border, which is smart. And we really don't have time to really go into it, but it is really an interesting article with several pages with a lot of good information. And, you know, they always said, what was it Paul Harvey said, now the other side of the story?
Yep, now the rest of the
and
story.
This is the way this is. It's still not where it needs to be, but at least some attempts are being made.
Well, it's a shame it took 3.5 years to make the attempt. We're going to move on to our lightning round. Mr. Harris, we'll start with you.
I've been honored to be a substitute teacher on Political Smackdown a few times now, and sometimes people at church ask me what it's like, and my answer is always it's a lot of fun, sometimes challenging. The folks on this program are here because we like politics, we like government, and we like to talk. We see things differently, and we have different visions for our state and our country. Not a different love, but different visions for state and country. And when the cameras go off, we always leave as friends. There is a mutual respect for different opinions, even when we don't share those opinions. And I really wish that the folks in Raleigh and Washington could learn something from those of us in Cleveland County. It's okay to disagree, but never let politics ruin a friendship or a relationship.
Well said.
Well stated, yes. Mike?
Absolutely.
Well, on this date, August 30th in 2016, the Real Clear Politics average margin in the national presidential race for the popular vote had Hillary Clinton ahead of Donald Trump by 5%. In 2020, it had, on this same date, Joe Biden ahead by 6.9%. Today, August 30th, after a hoopla for over a month, the Real Clear Politics average has Harris ahead in the popular vote by 1.8%. Less than a third, right at a third of what Biden was ahead, a fourth of what Hillary was ahead. Both of those came down to election day much, much closer, even in the popular vote. Biden won it by 4.5, but nowhere like 6.9. And in the swing states, this thing is far from over. It's going to be a close race to the end. But Kamala is not in near as good a shape as they were. And on one quick thing, in Montana, Tim Sheehy is now up over John Tester between 3 and 6 points outside the margin of error. And if Republicans win Montana and West Virginia and lose none, there will be a 51-49 majority in the U.S. Senate.
Very good. Andy?
Well, I went back to that left-wing rag, the Wall Street Journal, for my next thing. And this, we really don't have time to get into it, but it was a very interesting article that came out yesterday talking about how the American dream seems to feel out of reach to the majority of the younger people. Used to be 96, 98% of folks thought knew they would do better than their parents. That now has dropped to next to nothing because people feel like the American dream is not. And those of us that have younger kids that are in their 20s, they don't seem like they have the job opportunities that we all used to have. It used to be a 4-year college degree would get you anywhere you need into a very good job and be able to buy a home to take care of your family. That's just not the fact anymore. So I don't know what the real answer is going to end up being, but we've got to realize times they are changing, as Bob Dylan said.
No doubt. Really quick news from England. Mike, the National Health Service staff are being mandated to ask everyone, even men, if they are pregnant before carrying out radiography. And today is the 328th day that Americans have been held in captivity by Hamas. Fortunately, Israel was able to free 2 hostages, but not any of the Americans. Thoughts continue to be with them. We hope you have a great week. If you get a chance, look up Liberty Mountain, and we will see you next week for a new edition of Political Smackdown.